Hi everyone, thank you for watching. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to do flats with clubs. So that trick looks a little bit like this. As you can see, each throw is not rotating at all. It is just thrown flat, hence the name flats. So the first step learning the flats is to simply just take one club. All you're going to do is hold it slightly lower on the handle than maybe you usually do. I normally would hold it up here, but for the flats I usually try and hold it towards the bottom part of the handle, not all the way down but as low as you can. And also remember, within the juggle, you're not always going to be able to catch it perfectly at the bottom, so there has to be a little bit of room for adjustment. The main trick that I was taught by my juggling teacher Jose in the circus school that I attended was, instead of gripping it like this is sort of the normal grip of a club, you're going to extend your index finger and actually put it along the back of the club. So you're extending your finger all the way like this. Instead of gripping it like this, your index finger's extended and you're holding it like this. So now what this does is it gives you control over not just the bottom bit, but now over all of this handle, you know. I know I have big hands, but I'm sure yours will pretty much also cover the entirety of the handle. Now we've got the base position with our hand on the bottom of the handle, our index finger outstretched. We have to think about how we're going to throw the club to not make it spin and to make it stay flat. First thing we need to think about is our wrist. I really don't think you need to use your wrist in this throw. I kind of imagine my wrist and my arm as one unit, as opposed to when I'm trying to do spins or double spins. I'd put a lot more emphasis on flicking the wrist up like this. So like that. I would think a lot about bringing the wrist up separately to my arm, but in the flat throw I'm thinking much more bringing my arm and my wrist up in one line like this, as opposed to like this. So the second thing on that note would be, instead of throwing the club like this, you want to try and lift your arm up in a line like that. So I'm not bringing my arm towards me, I'm bringing my arm straight up like an elevator. Another useful thing to think about in this throw is the sensation in the pad of your hand. So when you're throwing the club in a flat throw, you're pushing up with your hand and your finger like this, but that still is going to put more emphasis on the club going that way. You know, if you think too much in the index finger, it's still going to begin to rotate. That's why feeling the sensation in the pad of your hand is very useful to flatten it out. So you're pushing up with your hand and your index finger, but in order to stop the club rotating like that, you need to also feel and push through the pad of your hand up like this. So you're pushing up like that at the same time as you're pushing up with your index finger and your hand. So that's a really complicated way of saying you're just pushing up with all of your hand at the same time. But I think it's useful to break down the different parts, because sometimes you really have to actively think about the pad of your hand, think, oh, push through the pad, and that could be the cue that works for you to make the club flat. The last thing to mention is I would start off practicing flats without putting much force into it at all. So doing everything that we've already covered, just try tiny little throws like this. There's really no need to make it any higher for the start, and then as you get more comfortable, try and push it further and further. Practice that small throw like this, over and over, one hand to the other hand, like this. As soon as you're comfortable, we're going to take two clubs and we're just going to build up in the exact same way as you build up to any normal 3-club cascade trick. So we're going to go 1 like this, like this, like this. And once you've mastered the 2-club version like this, it is relatively simple to add in the 3rd. Obviously, I would start from a normal cascade. So I would be going normally here. When you're ready, 1 club to catch, or you can go normal club, 1 club, back into the cascade like this. If you find it easier, you can start from cold, so just from holding the clubs. You might find the first flat a little tricky from this position, because obviously now you have 2 in 1 hand, but the principle is exactly the same. The only difference is, instead of using your whole hand and the pad of your hand like we talked about earlier, instead you're going to use the club as your hand. So instead of pushing up from the pad of my hand and pushing up, and I'm feeling it on the club, so like this. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment letting me know what you think. Please leave me any feedback or any requests for future tutorials in the comment section as well. Happy juggling, have a lovely day.